Thank you to all the representatives for putting forward their comments. With that, we now go back to our honorable central ministers for their comments and their answers.
Thank you. Thank you for your very enlightened and concerned presentations of your home situation and your requests for future development of your concerned state. By way of general observations on having listened to the 7 states and their representatives, I would like to note these aspects. First of all, you have identified very genuine and immediate needs for your people, for your situation. Secondly, more than 4 of you, in fact, mentioned about the importance of education on the one hand and agriculture on the other. This brings me to 2 aspects which I thought could also have been highlighted. One in terms of what role you foresee these educational institutions that you would like to have in the region or in your respective state to play in terms of all other concerns that you mentioned with regard to development, infrastructure, roads, the security issues. And another missing aspect, I thought, was an audit of the resource that the states have. For example, the whole question of natural gas in more than one state in the region, the petroleum and fuel, as a resource in more than one state, which is in a way a cause of some of the kind of grievance that have surfaced in the earlier presentations too. And it's not a decision that has come from the government from post-independent days, but from pre-independent days. I'm referring to the fuel pipeline, oil pipeline that runs from Digboy all the way to Bihar. Now, if that happened in the colonial times or in the British India time, it would be worth looking at the history of the development of this resource as a case to talk about the linkage that could exist between the states, as many of you mentioned. So, where does the responsibility lie in terms of highlighting the resource as for the nation or for the whole country at large, because the rest of the country doesn't have natural gas despite our explorations in the sea shores of Trombay. We have much higher deposits in northeastern region. So just like if iron ore is there in Bihar or in Orissa, one couldn't say that those resources are only meant for the states where it is located. So this interstate sharing within the region should go hand in hand with the central level planning, where the excess resource can also be shared and in turn bring back to the region the kind of input that you would like to have, as you have mentioned. Coming to a specific concern at this stage, linking many of your suggestions and with the primary base being literacy, as Mizoram mentioned, or Nagaland to having a high level of literacy, and that leading to good base for educational institutions of high-end, and as I mentioned also high-end technology coming even into agriculture, while these are taken care of by the upcoming generation being given the best of education within the region, as is already happening with new even private universities that have come into the region. So it would be, I would have expected also an understanding of what has been the history of investment in education in these in the region, how each of the states now have a university, and how even private universities are coming up. And now I make a mention of education because if you have an educated youth population, as someone mentioned, unemployment to some extent can be curtailed because they get opportunities not only within the state or in the rest of India, but all over the world. But even more, the educated population is what gives rise to civil society. And this, I thought, was again another aspect of development or even infrastructure development and even investment in education that we are looking at. Ultimately, we would like to see the state flourishing. And when does a state flourish? When it has an active civil society, an enlightened civil society, an engaging civil society with the political structure, with the corporates present in the region, and with the local communities. And this would also address a lot of issues with regard to the ongoing peace processes or the lack of it, which I expected from the state of Nagaland, especially to highlight, because it is the oldest people conflict or ethnic unresolved issue in the world, the Nagaland issue. We in the center have, in a way, tried on and off to address it, but in order to have its legitimate effect, I think it has to come back again from the people, and for this we need civil society, and for that purpose we are here all out ready to invest in education, and I am sure education I see as the link, just like you have proposed a link road that connects with the Southeast Asia and the North East Asia, as giving new opportunities and new openings to the Arunachal state, to its interstate international borders. So too, the people development happens when education invested creates vibrant civil societies. Thank you.
I had heard a lot of statements of the great difficulties in each of the states, and proposals that were primarily state-oriented proposals. And I was a little concerned that this conference had been related to the regional developments. And I think I heard just one, the last speaker from Tiapura, who started proposing for regional development proposals, specifically on a regional that they were part of. And so I would encourage you to think further about how it's not just your state, but how you, with the other states in the region, can collectively take responsibility for these great difficulties that you have.
A statement that was made by Meghalaya hit my ears, that was their priority for development was for the first 5 years. We cannot take any kind of development for this short term. It has to be for a long period. So in case of identifying community, we over here, as Sir himself has said, that we wanted the Northeast region uniting together. Here you are not only fragmenting it within the amongst the state, but within the states itself. We cannot give priority to one community and not give priority to the other. My first concern is that. My second concern is, some of you all have stated, trade routes to be opened with the international nations. Yes, there were trade routes initially opened with international regions. Father himself even has stated there was no boundary. The reason why boundary was not given was so that there is no differentiation. But in recent times, we are facing a lot of problem. We cannot monitor each and every movement because we all know fake IDs have come up, people are getting corrupted. But yes, center is trying. The Home Minister himself is looking into security matters. States that have borders with Myanmar and Bangladesh, along with China, that is on Arunachal Pradesh. Recently we had, last year itself, we had infiltration from China, which India, the central government had taken strong action against it. If you are aware of it, when it comes to security, it is not that we just cannot put up barbed wires with electricity on, as some have stated, but even after that we do have problems, and the problem is not with two nations only. It is also with the community living in those international border areas. So not only the center, I would like again that this trade that is taken internally within the country and with international borders has to be more legitimate. It cannot be ignored. The center is giving, taking initiative, making up laws, putting up posts. We have, in case of border in West Bengal, that is Calcutta area, there's Bangladesh, we share a common border over there. In that case, yes, Indian government has set up borders, same check post, monitoring goods that is coming from Bangladesh to India, vice versa. Same thing is being provided in few, almost all of the international regions, border regions, but still again that word illegal comes into action, where the community itself is helping the foreigners to infiltrate. So with that, I would like to say that central government can help, but community, the region, the people in themselves even have to take up some initiatives to support the central government and not thinking only about their personal reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ministers. Yeah, a round of applause. Now I'd like to go back to the State Ministers to put forward their questions or comments.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much for valuable comments, but I want to share that in case of border fencing, we have some areas which is like a river is there. This part is India and then the opposite part is Bangladesh. Then now it is not about the infiltration, it is also the part of smuggling. The people, those are community people, they also know that the infiltration is not good for them. But the thing is, if central government help us to make this kind of situation friendly, that they can make some kind of fencing which is also a kind of well technological, or it not like fencing through the wire or something. It's a new kind of fencing. Then they can stop this kind of smuggling or infiltration, because some areas are very much problematic. Like one property is there in that particular, in our state we have one property which is also It's like 2 kilometers, which is half of the house is in India and half of the house in Bangladesh. So we cannot say them to lost their property. So if you help us, then government help us for protecting this kind of property or dispute, land dispute, then we can help the community as well.
Thank you for that very realistic observation, because all across, whether it is in Bengal or in Meghalaya or in Tripura, where we have Bangladesh borders and we have people, like the Teen Biga issue in Bengal, we have access, we have people with living here with the property inside, special arrangements. So these special situations should be considered, especially is one of the points that you are raising, and I think that's very valid. And that's one area where we could have a tripartite, Bangladesh government, Tripura government and the centre being invited for a kind of, collective discussion with local chieftains or local tribal leaders or community leaders playing or giving their suggestion as to how best it could be resolved. And I think with Bangladesh we need to have a very special understanding, and we do have, and we have made attempts and even to share the waters on the one side in turn for the airspace usage, or we have train that is going to Dhaka from Calcutta, or even trade between Agartala and Calcutta would be so easy if we could bypass the whole other chicken neck that was being mentioned earlier. So definitely this is something that we all need to address in terms of security and development. Thank you.
As the Honourable Minister pointed out about private education, which is true, it is there in the Northeast. Definitely Northeast has evolved through private education primarily. But the fact remains that we are talking about rural masses, and the cost of private education is such, we all know. If I talk in terms of medical or engineering, leave aside the others, most of the people in the rural villages, masses, would not be able to go for it. So therefore the support from the center is in terms of establishing, not only in our state, it could be in one of the nearest states, larger organizations, educational institutions, where cost would be, most of it would be funded by the center. So therefore people do not need to go to other states for such education, but can be accommodated there.
Thank you. Very valid and very true observation indeed, because the kind of fluctuation and the shift that is taking place in the corporate sector and the private sector coming into education with the new opening of the even international groups and universities to come in, etc., is only benefiting one section of Indian population, even if it is from northeast regions, is what you would like to highlight, and that's very well noted. Yes, and I personally, here I'm not representing the government as such, but I would think along with you that this is one area probably, if greater pressure is put from the region for better education and better investment in education, well, let's say not only in Northeast, across the India, because all over we know that from the constitutional provision over the 5-year plans that we have had, if we were to look into, never have we reached what even Kothari Commission or Radhakrishnan Commission from 1950s onwards have been saying should be allocated for education. So I do sympathize with this, and I think this would be this forum and the discussion and the ideas generated here would all the more be impinging upon the central allocation and the new modes of central financial resource allocation to look into this very legitimate concern that until and unless we educate the masses, our civil societies do not become strong, and until and unless our civil society doesn't become strong, our democratic base of building India as a strong state of citizens is not going to happen. And therefore we are all on the same boat with regard to this proposal that you are making, and I think we should put a stronger voice together in and through this consultation to the concerned departments of our federal structure.
Is that very recently the center has been taking up initiative to open providing of primary education. Initially it was primary education, but now it has shifted to the secondary education. It's like a stepwise. We cannot take a leap and just jump to the higher education. So center is trying their best to set up. Initially they had the primary education, now they have come up to 11, 12, the education, higher education till there. So we would like to say further we can provide with universities and colleges sufficient government colleges and universities for those areas.
Thank you.
So now the Honorable Minister would like to put forward final comments.
Yes, I would like on this occasion to bring to your notice some, since we are a consultation forum, of the policy studies series that East-West Center has produced all the way from Washington. And I was wondering whether these kind of documents should not have reached Washington from the Northeast rather than we in a consultation forum having to look for resources coming all the way from Washington. And this, of course, is indicative, since we are all educators in this process of disseminating values, and in preparation for this process of the consultation, as a kind of educator to educator kind of conscience tickling, provocating question mark. With the limited resources that this center, this place where we have come for this consultation, we kept out something like maybe 40 books selected by the resource persons from out of the 120 that or 200 that are available. And so the enlightenment and the rethinking happens, and when that rethinking reaches from centers and forums like this to the outside, I think true transformation and true change will happen. Thank you very much.
So with that, we come to the end of the consultation program. We thank all the ministers and the representatives of the state and the central ministers for being with us today.